In this episode, we are going to learn a little bit about Docker hosts, daemons, and the clients. So I'm switching to the slide directly, and here you can see that there are these two, basically three entities when Docker is working. One of them is the Docker host. It's where at the end, the Docker container is going to run. If it's on Windows, on Linux, it's native, so that's where it's running on your Linux native. But if your Docker container is a Linux-based container, then on Mac OS and on Windows, it needs an underlying virtual machine. So at least you'll have one virtual machine in that case, which means the performance is probably not as good as if you were running natively on Linux. But then up on top of this host, on the top of this virtual machine that runs on Windows or on OS X, you can have several copies, several Docker containers running. There's the Docker daemon, which is running on the host itself. So doesn't matter if it's Linux or Windows, it's running on the host, on the top of the host. And finally, there is the Docker client, the one that you're actually interacting with. So when you type in Docker, that's the Docker client, and that runs on your host OS, which can be either Linux, Windows, or OS X. And the Docker client and the host and the daemon, so they are together. So one hand is the host, which has the daemon, and the other side is the client. They don't have to be on the same machine. So we could actually connect to some other Docker daemon on some remote machine. I'm in this course. I'm going to primarily show you when they are on the same machine, so it's easier. Now, how do you start the daemons? You'll have to start the daemon in order to talk to it. The client, you just type in Docker, and that's the client. And the host automatically starts, or it's just there. Okay, so you need to start the daemon. Which is the server, basically the Docker server. So how do you do that? On OS X, so sometimes, or depending on your installation, if you install, it might configure itself to start automatically when you boot your operating system. And depending on your use case, this might be the preferable one. But sometimes you prefer that it won't start when the operating system starts, so it won't create an extra load on the day during the days when you are not using Docker. And then in order to start it, you type in on OS X, you type in open -a and Docker. On Linux, you would probably just say sudo service Docker Docker service. So you run sudo service Docker, and then you will say start. So I have it here status. You need to type in start. Of course, I'll fix this in the slide. And on Windows, there you're going to have the icon of the Docker desktop, and just run it, and it takes some time, maybe a minute or so, till it starts, and then the daemon is running. And then you can use the Docker client in order to connect to it to actually run those commands that we saw in the help video. So that's it. I think we have one more video before we actually get started doing things. So we'll have to talk about the Docker registry for a couple of minutes before we can actually get started. So see you in the next video.